Okay, it is Wednesday, February 20th. It's about 6:32 on this Wednesday, and we are already, believe it or not, in week 8. I mean, this has been a little trip down the road, and we only have 3 more to go. Actually, we have 3 more to go and 1 more lecture to go, that will take place in week 10. So anyway, let me go ahead and share my screen with you, because these sessions don't take long, because as I said before, this is kind of like a survey course. This is more like an independent studies, and you're familiar with this course homepage here. And so we're going to go down here all the way to the bottom to your rubrics. So we'll scroll down to week 8. So week 8, which is this week, you're supposed to do your field report and provide that, and it tells you what the requirements are. Many of you have been working on that. Now this is not your completed one, because your completed one will be in week 10. So you're going to explain the progress. Should be more than what you had the previous progress report. Make sure, and this is where many of you are messing up, you are not using citations in the body and references in the end. Now, one student said, how do I do this with the field report? You cite the agency and or the individual that you're working with, and then you provide a reference to the organization on the reference page. Simple as that. As simple as that. And, you know, this is something that is pretty straightforward. Notice that when you go down here, it says APA. APA. Why are we doing that? The reason we're doing that is because we want to get our students accustomed to providing information that will help you to be able to show the source of your information. So I want to know the organization in the body of the paper where you get the information from the statements that you put in there. Students usually use their own words, which is fine, but there's a source that you get that information to put in your words. That's the citations, just like when you're writing other papers as well. So it's very important that you do that in your field reports so that you can get your 30 points. Many of you got 25 points because you lost the APA. And I've said that before. Last quarter, I had the same issue with students, and I always remind them that if you go back to the top of my page, it says all written assignments should be in APA format. Then I talk about rubrics, APA, and critical thinking. You know what that is at this juncture because you're about to graduate. Your rubrics all say APA. Students just overlook it. They don't even look at it. And you're going to lose points every time. That's the difference between an A and a B sometimes, all right? So I just wanted to bring that to your attention once again, all right? And then you see here that we had lecture week 1, which was an open house, and I talked about a lot of things there, including by myself. Week 3, week 6, and now we're going to have week 8 here today, and then the final lecture will be 2 weeks from today, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Standard. Let's go over here. All right. So let's look at the lecture announcements for the week. This is week 8, gaining real-world experience. As you already have discovered that from the beginning of this course, what we're really doing is giving you an opportunity to do exercises that sharpen your ability to be able to be successful in obtaining your dream job. in the area that you want to work. And that's pretty much what this course is. That's why I said it's more of an independent study. My idea is to give you my point and role is to give you some ideas to help you to reach that goal. And that's what I've been doing in the lectures and anyone who reached out to me. And the exercises have been able to help you get those things done, okay? And then your discussion assignment, field work issues and experiences, and many of you have done well with those. And you know when those are due. Those are due Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, which was yesterday, and then the reply post due Saturday. And then complete the written assignment, field work progress report that we just talked about. Then you know what Adversity is a Springboard to Success is all about, because we went over that in the first week. So now I want to just take a quick look at the course calendar, reminding you where we are here. Let me take this out a minute so that you just see. There we go. So now you see for your assignments for where we are now. And it tells you your live lecture. And you click on it and it explains what we do here. Then your reply post. Of course, your initial post was yesterday. Your reply post is Saturday the 23rd. Your field work project progress report is due the 24th, as well as your keyword that I'm going to give you at the end here. And then, because there is no lecture week 9, you're going to do the assignments for week 9. There's no textbook, but it tells you what the topic is: preparing for employment in the field. So a resume. So you're going to deal with resumes. Resumes are very, very, very important, as you know, and it's going to give you an opportunity to present your resumes and share with each other, share with me, and then I'll comment about a few of those. And then your initial post that'll be due next week involves resume. So the whole week is, if you look at it, preparing for the employment in the field, and pretty much it involves resumes, okay? So let's take a look at what we have for today. Of course, again, repeating again, the assignments, a 1 to 2 page progress report, and where you are in the process and what you've completed to date and your plan for the remainder of the paper. Be sure to reflect how the event within criminal justice has influenced your field work experience, and include that in your paper. Again, as I already told you, with the rubric citations in the body and references at the end. Okay. Sometimes I always tell students this: be sure, get into the habit of this, that in terms of your field work, one of the first things I always said to students is do a little research about the organization and have that information, like maybe some information on their website or something of that nature that helps you to be able to provide citations and information about your organization. So in order to do a good job field work, you got to know something about the organization as well. Do your what we call reconnaissance work. You know, like for example, if I was doing a field progress report with a ride along, I would, you know, do some research on the agency, the organization, the police department that I'm using. Don't use just say police department or state police. No, give me specifics, and then provide the information in your field report. And then your actual field report then will also reflect your experiences that you obtain by putting your hands on, such as in doing a ride along, or maybe interviewing an officer or chief or someone in that department, those kinds of things. So, and like I said, it should be a 10-hour project. Pretty easy to do, especially if you do a ride along. I know students who've done ride alongs that were 10 hours and they lasted one day and that was it, and then they did their assignments. So, And then your discussion post. Again, remember, you're talking about how your transferable skill that's going to apply. And we talked about transferable skills at the very beginning of this course in the open house. And you're going to apply those. And here's some of them: communication, ethics, and professional responsibility, diversity and teamwork, are interpersonal skills which are learned in groups. And then they require working together. And then your personal skill of digital fluency, information, and critical thinking are interpersonal skills. So these will apply in terms of issues that you came across in your fieldwork experience, how you dealt with them and stuff like that. And then your live keyword, which is due Sunday. Again, you know how it works. You get 5 points if you provide the right one by Sunday. And if you provide it Monday, you get 4. If you provide it Tuesday, you get 3. Wednesday, 2. Thursday, 1. After Thursday, it's 0. So you can't do that. But think about it. The live classroom should be done before Sunday so that you can make sure it helps you with your assignment, okay, for that Sunday that you're turning in. So that's one of the reasons why students should use that live lecture, and that's why I make it available pretty fast. And then in this class, the lectures aren't really that long because there's no reading material that you have to deal with here, all right? So now, going back down, your field work, your discussion post, and then your live lecture. All right, so now let's go to the module itself, where I kind of comment about what we're dealing with here. Again, the key is you're gaining important professional experience. One of the greatest things that happened to me while I was determining that I wanted to become a lawyer was I got a job in a big law firm. But I looked for every opportunity. I was a messenger. But I looked for every opportunity to learn from the lawyers. And ultimately, I would end up, as you learn from my open house, climbing to the point of becoming what they call a paralegal today, or a law clerk, where that was like a kid being in a candy factory. I was in law land, and I was actually sitting in court, going to closings, going to contract negotiations with the attorneys themselves. And I gained experience just from learning and sitting in. And the same thing happens in law enforcement. Many of you have either interaction in terms of working, but your field report is giving you an opportunity to gain professional experience. And one other thing that I've said before, it also opens up opportunities for future employment, because when you get ready to apply for a position, you can then be known. They say, oh yeah, I know Joe. Joe was one of the students who did a ride-along with me. I was very impressed by Joe. Joe was very professional. Joe was very prepared and focused. Those kinds of things. And in this tough job market, you want to have those kind of skills. Those are good communication skills. And you show work ethic. You show also the ability to make good decisions and things like that. So, so we want you to gain professional experience. This whole course is all about helping you with that. That's what the field report is pointing towards. And then, you know, we already talked about explaining the progress, and I talked about the transferable skills and how they work within the experience. And so it is very important for you to realize that this course is not like busy work. This is actually investment in your future. This is making yourself known. This is putting your best efforts forward. And that's why I encourage from the very beginning of this course to do your report, your field report, in an area or an agency that you have in your radar. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to end up going there. However, there is also a chance that, too, as you build your resume, that you will end up being able to include that experience in a future employment opportunity, even if it's another agency. And I tell you, you make contacts. You know, I said already this earlier in the quarter, and I'll keep saying it to you again to, you know, get in your head, is that the formula for success in a job is, number one, being educated. So you want to get good grades. So you want to follow, and these rubrics, you know, sometimes it might seem tedious, but you got to get into the habit of not questioning how tedious something is, but recognizing that what the requirements are, you're going to want to satisfy those requirements within the context of your schoolwork, number one, and then you're going to have them as a professional responsibility for the agency or agencies that you end up working for, so that you can be considered as a good employee or professional at whatever you do, whether it's jails, prisons, parole, probation, human services, whether you end up ultimately becoming a lawyer or a criminal lawyer, and so forth and so on. And so the bottom line is that you put your best foot forward at all times. And so what you do is then you make a name for yourself. It's always good to make a good name. So you go to interview for a job. Oh yeah, we know Deborah. I'll use your name. We know Deborah. Deborah worked on a project with me, or I worked on a project with her, and they observed. Let me tell you something. When you do these things, number one, we tell people, go dress professional, dress to impress, like you're going for a job interview. But I'm not going for a job interview. I'm doing a field report. I call that a pre-job interview myself. Get into the habit in your mind and say, if I was thinking about hiring somebody, will Deborah pop up in my mind? Let me explain something to you that happened to me. When I was an adjunct professor, and an adjunct professor is a part-time professor, which meant that I would teach a few classes, but I didn't have the full time, all right? But the way that I was a full-time employee. I'm talking about here at Rasmussen. From the time I came here in 2011 to 2014, I was on campus. I even moved farther. I moved closer to the campus so I can spend more time at campus. And they gave me a little cubbyhole office, and I used to be there, and I was there so much, guys, that they thought that I was a full-timer. But I was not a full-timer. And I would participate in activities that the full-timers were required to participate in, but as an adjunct, I volunteered to participate in many of those activities. So guess what happened to me? First of all, the peers, the people that I work with, every quarter, this is where it was at the Romeoville campus, they select an individual that they feel who has contributed to the team and, you know, was very active. And I, as an adjunct professor, received what they call the Normantown Cup Award. This was an award that only 2 adjuncts, myself and another adjunct, got it. And guess what happened to both of us? We became full-time. So here's what happened with me. So I got that award. So, you know, I enjoyed it. I wasn't thinking about the number of hours I needed to put in. I was helping wherever I was needed. So the program coordinator, the state program coordinator for the School of Justice Studies in Illinois, was in Rockford, and I was in Romeoville, and oftentimes he had to come from Rockford to Romeoville, or either go to Mokina or Aurora, which is close to where I was, and get there to do things. But he would run into problems, and he'd reach out and say, hey, Rich, would you cover for me? I didn't get any additional monies or nothing like that. I said, sure, and I covered. And so he and I formed a relationship. Now, he was full-time, I was not. Well, one day when I was at the campus, sitting in my little cubbyhole doing some work, the dean of the School of Justice Studies was in the area, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And the dean, when the dean came, he the state program coordinator took him around to show him the campus. And then he came back to where us faculty were, and he says, "Oh, here's somebody I want you to meet." And he said, and so he introduced me to him. Now, listen to this. So I met the dean for the whole program in all campuses, all right? So he and I talked for about 10, 15 minutes or so, and, you know, the impression I left with him, I guess, is pretty good, and you'll see why when I tell you what happened after that. Well, he left, and I went back to doing what I was doing. Some months passed, and then it became apparent, clear, that the guy who was the state program coordinator was moving on, and that his job was going to be vacant. So some of my colleagues on campus got the word, who were full-time. They said, "Rich, I'm going to tip you off. That program coordinator position is going to be open. It's not officially posted, but they came together and helped me because they saw how I was. And they saw, you know, how I didn't mind doing extra. And so sure enough, when it posted, my resume and my information was at the front of the line. It was like it was posted at 11:59. I had posted by 12:05 a.m. the next day. And so when the resume and the information, and so I put together, with the help of my colleagues, expectations about what a person does in that role. And I prepared something that they didn't expect. I prepared about 8-page strategies about things that I could do to make the program work well in Illinois. Remember, I'm dealing with Illinois. So I did that. So anyway, I ended up doing a phone interview. First, I did a phone interview with the person in human rights, and not human rights, I'm sorry, but in HR. So I did that with the HR people, and then they passed my name on to the next person, who happened to be the dean. And remember, it's the same person I met some months before that. So when he got that, they set up a phone interview. I'm in Illinois, but he was in Minnesota. So actually, he was in Kansas, I think, working from there. But he worked between Minnesota and Kansas. Either way, it was a phone interview. So I sat up when I knew the phone interview was going to take place, and I did something I talked to you guys about earlier in other modules, when we talked about what we just completed, actually, I believe in week 6, interviewing within Justice Field. I sat down and I brainstormed, if I was him, what questions would I ask? And I wrote those questions down, and I wrote my suggested answers to them. And I had this, and I went over this over and over so that it became a part of me. So here we come for the interview. Now, the interview was only going to be a half an hour. And so anyway, I was on point, guys. I was prepared. And so when I completed the interview, I remember the last question that he asked me was, "Why you over anybody else?" And then I told him my story that I told you guys in abbreviated form about what I went through and what led me into criminal justice and becoming a lawyer and police officer and so forth. When I finished that, he said, "Excuse me," he said, "I need to wipe my eyes." He says, "You know," he says, "I want to say to you, Richard," he says, "I was so excited when I saw your resume pop up. And he says that when I saw your resume pop up, he says, I knew exactly. So, see, it wasn't like a resume without a face, but it had come not me preparing for the position, it had come from me doing something that I normally would do, and that was just do my job more than I had to, and it impressed the state program coordinator, it impressed the dean, and it's like putting money in a bank for future use. And so when it came time for that interview, he said to me, he says, I knew who I was talking to. I didn't see you, but I knew who I was talking to on the phone. He says, and I was impressed by you that day, and I'm even more impressed today. And then this is what he said to me. This will blow you away. He says, I've got to do other interviews with other individuals. However, I got who I want, but I must go through the process. I'll be back in touch. So he didn't say I had the job, and we talked about various things like salaries. We talked about all that kind of stuff. Anyway, the bottom line was we ended the conversation, and then I was handed off to two more individuals to do an academic dean at Aurora campus, where I did a physical and I had, and each time and by the way, I sent him an email with the strategies and plans that I had for the program. And then when I went to my interview in Aurora for the next one, which was my third interview, I took a copy of it and gave it to the person. We had a 20-minute interview. That was it on the campus. And then that person reached out to the person who was the campus director at the Romeoville campus, which would be my final interview. And the final interview was completed, and she never said to me anything, but I knew where I was going with that. And so the academic dean on my campus, who knew me, who by the way was that other person who ended up getting that award as an adjunct, so that became full-time, was an instructor full-time, and then when the dean position opened up, she ended up taking the job. Well, anyway, she knew me. So here's what I'm saying. I invested by using all of my transferable skills, all of the issues that I'm sharing with you, and I was doing my experience preparing for a job that I didn't know I was going to end up getting, but when it came, I was ready in prime time, and I was at the front of the line. And so I did get the job, and that's how you do it. That's how you do it. And it meets all the objectives, professional experience. I was doing field work, but I was doing extra stuff, working at the same time. But I started that at the law firm. When I met the lawyers, I let them know I wanted to be a lawyer, and they took an interest in me. They saw I was in school and was performing well. Same thing you guys are doing. And so that's it. That is it. And so what I want to do with you is give you the key phrase that I want. And I hope everything that I've said today helped you. Any questions? If you have any questions, type in the chat box. And I apologize for that ring. The phone rings right near where I'm doing this. Any questions? If so, type yes or no in the chat box and I'll see it. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Did this information I shared with you give you some direction and help you? Good. That's my goal. I mean, not accomplished. Mission accomplished. So I've given you what I want you to give me in terms of the keyword. I'm not going to repeat it again because I already said it. And just submit that word to me. And again, keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on getting those assignments on time. And then remember what I said about APA. Remember, A light bulb should be coming on. Because let me say this final thing about that. What we're doing is preparing you for integrity, because in employment, you're going to have to prepare reports, you're going to have to prepare and utilize sources. And those sources are going to be sources that are established already. As a lawyer, whenever we prepare a brief or memo for court, we always prepare it based on some prior cases that were similar, or the issues were similar or relate to the issues in the case that I was dealing with, but we would cite that source and provide the case name. We would provide the year, the date, the page number, all that. We'd use the court case citation in there. Or if there was an article or a journal or something like that. The key thing is you're giving credit for the sources. And in the field report, you want to get into the habit of not just doing the report and getting experience, but also knowing something about the organization, but reflecting that in your report to demonstrate that you did some investigative information. If you ever listen very carefully to reporters on television, really good reporters, they will basically provide their sources, and sometimes they don't give their sources. But the bottom line is that if they do get a source according to so-and-so, so-and-so, you know, this is what they do. What they're doing is it gives credibility to the report that you're preparing. So you got that? Got it? Make sense? Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm going to say good night. It's 7:04, and so I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good evening. Get out of the classroom.